Hey everyone, Keto Comet coming at you with another reaction video. Today we are looking at an interview between John Douillard, who is he's a naturopath, and I don't fully subscribe to all the naturopath stuff. I think some of it's valid, but some of it's not. I'm kind of a skeptic. But he mainly prescribes like a plant-based diet with 10% meat products. So if you've heard of the vegan diet, 80-10-10, where it's 80% carbs and 10% fat, 10% protein. He kind of does the polar opposite of that, where it's 90% fat, 90% carbs and stuff, and then 10% animal based. Well, I'm not sure I agree with that because I still think that's way too many carbs. I'm all about a good keto diet, whether it's plant-based, you can do plant-based or vegetarian-based keto. I think, or meat-based, I'm all about the meat-based. I think it's much better for you, much easier to digest your nutrients, things like that. But he did an interview because he's gone from a vegan way of eating to a more omnivore way of eating over a series of years. So he's interviewing somebody that he used to take his cues from, Dr. John McDougall, who he's a vegan proponent. He was featured in the movie Forks Over Knives. He has a diet plan called the Starch Solution, which mainly he says that we are geared to eat mainly starch, agricultural based starch, wheat, beans, corn, potatoes, those kinds of things with no animal products required whatsoever. But this is an old picture of Dr. John McDougall. When you see him, you'll see what I think this diet has done to him over years. But this turned out to be quite an interesting video, and I just wanted to react to it a little bit. Won't do the whole thing because it's over an hour, but gonna skip through to some of the highlights, and I think it'll be interesting for you to see what a high carb diet over many, many years with not enough fat and protein can do to somebody. So let's check it out.
I'm Dr. John Douillard, and welcome to LifeSpa.com, where we prove the ancient medical wisdom of Ayurveda with modern science. And today
Look
we
at the
have a
big
very special
difference
guest.
between him and that picture already. He kind of looks, I don't like to do ad hominem, but he kind of looks like, oh, I'm a comedian. I love ad hominem. Kind of looks like the Crypt Keeper from the old Tales from the Crypt series to me. I don't know.
A mentor of mine, one of his first books, The McDougall Plan, Dr. John McDougall, one of the pioneers in vegetarian vegan diets. My mom's a fan.
He looks
My
like he's about
family's
to
a
fall
fan.
over.
I've
I mean,
read
he
his
doesn't look like
books
he has
for
a whole lot of
decades
strength, but
now.
maybe he's
I
holding
am
on to a
truly
desk or
honored
something.
to
I
have
don't know.
him as our guest. There's
He
very
needs
few
some fat
people
on
on the
his bones.
planet
He needs to fill
that
out
have
those
been
cheeks.
preaching
He's too
the
skinny.
exact same message for 40 years. And Dr. John
40
McDougall
years of
is
high
here
starch.
to share that information with us. At the same time, there's a massive surge in veganism on the planet in our country, thanks to pioneers like Dr.
Funded
John
by the
McDougall.
powers that
But
be.
there's also a massive surge in ketogenesis, and
Yep.
carnivorous diets are now all of a sudden coming out of
Because it's the best way
who
to
knows where.
go. It's the most
And
healthful way to
there's
go.
a
Keto is it.
lot
I
of
don't care if it's plant-based or
confusion out
animal-based.
there
Just
for
do high
folks that
fat.
I don't know what to eat. Even some of the most experienced dietitians don't know where to go because the science on both sides of the aisle seems to be conflicting. So I'm going to try to have Dr. John McDougall
But the
convince us
science
all
on
that we
high
should be
carb
vegans.
is so
I'm going to
outdated.
present a lot of science to him
They
on both
still
sides of
bounce
the
it
aisle, and
off Ansel
he knows
Keys.
the vegan science. I'm going to try to ask him some difficult questions and see if we can make some sense out of this crazy concept of what should be
Crazy
so simple,
being the key
what we
word.
should actually eat. So let me tell you a little bit more about Dr. John McDougall, author of 13 best-selling
Other than the
books.
fact he's
He's
about to
board
fall over
certified,
from lack of
internist
energy.
licensed in 5 states. He's the author of 13 books, plus the online newsletter, the McDougall newsletter. He's a co-founder of the 10-day Live-In McDougall program in Santa Rosa, California, which I hear amazing things about. He's a clinical instructor for 4 schools training young physicians.
Okay, gonna skip ahead a little bit. I know he's got a lot of credentials, but that we're about to see. Okay, we're gonna jump into the actual interview. Here we go.
We're starch eaters, and not 30% carbohydrate, but 80 to 90% carbohydrate. There is no dissension in the scientific research as to what we were eating. For example, we have research on would you like me to tell you some of the research? We have
Yes.
research on Neanderthals all across Europe that shows that they were starch eaters. Neanderthals from 40,000 years ago. We have research from Mozambique.
Okay. So I guess all those cave drawings of them hunting animals were just to fool us. That wasn't really what was happening. Doesn't seem quite right to me. And also what he's saying about not just 30% carbs, he wants you to eat like 90% carbs. But the body really it has very little need for carbohydrate. And what little bit of carbohydrate your body needs, it can make from protein. It doesn't need you to intake carbohydrate. That's the thing. So you're overloading your body with sugar. That's all it is. But anyway.
From Africa of 105,000 years ago that they ate starch-based diets. It means the research goes on and on. Just last year, they talked about a ship full of barley off the coast of Wales that they found. We were always starch eaters. The research does not say that we ate.
We were not always starch eaters. We didn't start widespread agriculture until a few thousand years ago.
Excuse me, that's my passion.
Okay, no, I get it's your passion.
You're
But
crazy.
you have to, but maybe you don't, but there are studies out there that do cite
No,
a lot less than that. And a lot of them say that.
no,
Let me
Yes.
question though.
there are not studies out there.
Yes, there are.
Studies that go back to the Christian Bible that show that we are starch eaters. Daniel took his men who were sick and visiting another kingdom, and he asked the gatekeeper.
Okay. I'm going to put this out there. I'm not a religious person at all. So citing the Bible, which has no historical significance because nothing's ever been proven other than Israel existing now or ancient city of Jerusalem. So going back to the Bible as historical evidence doesn't really sit right with me because the Bible hasn't been fully proven as a historical source. Now, if some of you are religious and that makes you hate me, I'm sorry, but that's just my opinion. But the fact is, he's reaching. He's going out to cite spiritual books rather than historical documents because there are no studies from Neanderthal times. How could there could be unless you've exhumed a falsified skeleton and still found their stomach intact with undigested. There are no studies from Neanderthal times. The only thing we have to go on in Neanderthal times is historical record, which shows lots of cave paintings of them hunting meat to eat and foraging for what little bit of vegetables they could find, usually green vegetables, like the stuff that keto recommends you eat, the low starch green veg. We didn't even start agriculture until a few thousand years ago, 10,000 years ago in the historical record. So there are no studies dating to Neanderthals about high starch. There just isn't. And citing the Bible or the Quran or any spiritual document as proof of that doesn't fly because the people that wrote that book, whether you believe it was inspired by a higher being or not, proves nothing. It was simply what those people thought you should eat from a spiritual standpoint. So this is all just BS.
Vegetarian diet. Daniel in the Bible did 2,600 years ago. The first controlled trial on diet that was done. At the end of 10 days, they declared the men who stayed on the pulses, vegetables, starches, and water were much healthier than the people.
The Bible said that. The Bible did a study and said that. Okay.
For over 2,600 years that have clearly shown that we are starch eaters.
And the thing you got to realize, we have to talk about religion here because he started as a Seventh-day Adventist doctor. Now, Seventh-day Adventists are historically known for A, keeping the Sabbath on the seventh day or Saturday, and B, following a vegetarian diet. So his spiritual beliefs are feeding his science. And so he's not going for, when we talk about studies, we have to go from pure science. He's not talking about pure science. He's talking about his religious and spiritual beliefs. And that is in no way proof of anything. And I'll say that about any religion or any philosophy out there. Just because you believe it to be so does not make it so. We're looking at hard facts here. He has none. And you can go back and Google Dr. John McDougall, Google Dr. McDougall, and you can see lots of Seventh Day propaganda films that he's made about how to eat as a vegetarian in a meat world, all kinds of stuff. So, and I'm going to do a video on veganism coming up soon where it shows it actually started as a religious and spiritual cult. So its entire foundation is based in woo and not hard science. And the only science they have is the Ansel Keys study, which was heavily doctored and cherry picked. So I'm sorry, I get passionate about this and it makes me mad because the powers that be seem to want to push this. And it really makes me angry. But anyway, and again, if you're a religious person and me not being a believer turns you off, I'm sorry. But I still love you. I hope you still love me because that would be the religious thing to do. But I have to bring it up because it is a fact here. Anyway.
Calories have come from starch in almost all populations. The exceptions have been people who live on the extremes of the environment, such as the Inuit Eskimo.
Right.
They 7 months a year on the Atkins diet. There are a few tribes in Africa and South America that eat all meat diets. High meat diets,
Millions of years we've survived on mostly meat because it's what we could catch or forage from the forest, not. We didn't have agriculture until 10,000 years ago, you crazy idiot.
The people who walk this earth have attained the bulk of their calories from starch. That's the science.
What about the idea that we are seasonal eaters and that the microbiome has been shown to shift dramatically from one season to the next? The bugs in the soil shift from one season to the next. And there are times of year when wheat and
is this an act? Is this just... Are we witnessing performance art here?
Famine, it's more difficult to get those starches because those tubers and those grains don't harvest until the end of the summer. So is it possible that we are seasonal eaters and we went from periods of famine where we ate a massive amounts of starch in the summer and late summer, fall, but come winter
Thank
and
you.
early spring.
I can concur that perhaps agriculture, the reason agriculture did thrive is because it was an easier way to get food. You didn't go out to hunt for it, you could grow it. And I'm not saying that farmers have an easy time of it. That's not what I'm saying, but it was a little more consistent. You know, you look in our local history here in the United States, the indigenous tribes that were here, they sustained most of their calories off of buffalo on the high plains, smaller game in the Southwest. It was all a hunting and gathering based society. They were nomadic, and that's the way it's been through the majority of human history. We moved where the weather was more, or the climate was more tolerable to us living. So we'd be one place in the winter, another place in the summer, and we foraged for food based on that. And if that included planting crops during a couple of months and growing something, then we did that. But you cannot say that starch has been the mainstay of because Neanderthals knew nothing about planting and harvesting crops, but they knew they could catch that deer or that antelope or that other animal and eat it. You know, for a long time we were eating that stuff raw. We didn't even know about fire. So you can't say that we've always had an industrious enough attitude, mental capacity to grow crops. It doesn't work that way. We sustained off what we could find in our local area, and that was usually meat and green vegetation, nuts, berries. That's what we lived off of. All right? The historical record shows that through cave paintings, Egyptian hieroglyphics. There are no scientific studies from the Neanderthal era. Good Lord. The cognitive dissonance is major with this guy.
They went into periods of famine where there was no starch and actually became ketogenic because we were actually eating no food. And therefore, we weren't on a high starch diet during that time. And maybe actually to starve, like if you were in Vermont in January 10,000 years ago, you probably would have had a hunt to get something and therefore had some animal fats to insulate you and some of those fats to help you make it through the winter. Talk to me about your perspective on that concept, that we were in fact seasonal eaters and we went from high starch to low starch, from starch
Thank
food
you.
to keto
Let's
food
see what he
fuel
has to say.
to
I
actually help
tell
us
by
make
looking
it
in his
through the
eyes,
year.
he's not digging it.
You know, that's an interesting theory, and the first time I've heard that. So I appreciate what you have to say, and I see some validity in it, but
Is he drunk? Vodka's brewed from potatoes. Beer's brewed from grain. That's technically a starch.
Where they always had crops. It was only when the human population migrated away from the equator to northern and southern latitudes that they were put in a situation where they had to switch in the wintertime to animal-based.
What about the Aztecs and the Incas? Yeah, they sustained on potatoes but this was not Neanderthal. But they also sacrificed humans. So are you really going to hold them up as a say of good health? What about the people in the Nordic regions that survive mainly on fish and vegetation? They did not migrate to the equator. Okay, there have been people living all over the world for millions of years. Talk about the Inuit Eskimos. They've lived at the top of the world for centuries. So you cannot, your theory does not hold water. And anyway, the rest of this video is just more ranting. I'm already sick of it, and we're 15 minutes in, so I'm going to stop here. But it's just more ranting and raving from a lunatic. And I really hate to say that, but these are the people the vegans hold up as their touchstones. Their other big doctor, Dr. Greger, old videos of him have surfaced where he's promoting vasectomies for all males. I mean, the woo is heavy with the vegans. It really is. The ketogenic vegans would be the exception. They seem to have a little more fat in their brain, so they're a little more reasonable, but this just angers me. But anyway, this is just a snippet. I'll do some more on him. I'll do some more on the vegan cult, talk about how it's religious roots and things like that. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little walk into craziness. Thanks a lot. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know if you enjoy these kind of videos. I'll also be back with some more Amberlynn Reid videos. Love you guys. Keep feeding me what you want me to do, and I'll do it. Tracy Barkley, Keto Comic, out.